I'd like to call public hearing to order for August 8th, 2022. We have 4 items on public hearing. The first item is TP Ordinance 2239, an ordinance placing 20-mile-an-hour speed limit signs on McKay Hill Lane in District 10. TP Ordinance 2240, an ordinance placing 35-mile-an-hour speed limit signs on Pleasant Ridge Road Extension in District 8. TP Ordinance 2241, an ordinance placing 35-mile-an-hour speed limit signs on DePhillips Road in District 2. And TP Ordinance 2242, an ordinance placing no truck route and no trucks beyond this point signs on West Fontana Road at the gravel pit to East Evans Road in District 4. If no one's here to speak on those items, we'll move into our regular business. If you have a cell phone, please turn it off or mute it at this time. We'll have our invocation by Mr. Kevin Greer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Trent Forrest.
Lord, we thank you for this day and all your blessings, and we thank you for our parish, Lord, and everyone that's involved in it and a part of it. Lord, we just thank you for those who give us the freedom to enjoy our parish and our people. Lord, we ask you to be with this council tonight as they make decisions to help better it, and just lead and guide and direct us in everything we say and do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Please place the flag with veterans and active military. Please render the proper salute. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Tazoo, would you please call roll?
Mr. Forrest.
Here.
Mr. Ingraffia.
Here.
Mr. Joseph.
Present.
Mr. Bruno.
Present.
Mr. Richtel.
Here.
Mr. Mayu.
Present.
Mr. Wells.
Here.
Mr. Bial.
Here.
Ms. Hyde.
Here.
Mr. Coates.
Okay. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to read over the minutes from the July 25th meeting. If there's no questions or corrections, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve minutes, please.
All right, have a motion by Mr. Wells, second by Mr. Joseph. Roll call, please.
Mr. Forrest.
Yes.
Mr. Ingraffia.
Yes.
Mr. Joseph.
Yes.
Mr. Bruno. Mr. Richtel.
Yes.
Mr. Mayu.
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
Yes.
Mr. Bial.
Yes.
Ms. Hyde.
Yes.
Ms. Coates.
Yes.
All right, public input. Anyone wishing to address an agenda item that was not on public hearing? If not, we'll have President Miller come and give us his report.
Good evening, everyone. Oh, must be polished. My notebooks just slid down. The first thing we have on the agenda is to recognize one of our own from Tangipahoa Parish. So, Jaden, if you'll come up, please. I think y'all all know, but we're going to make sure that everybody in the parish knows more. Jaden Hawk is a senior at, let me put on my glasses and make sure I read it right, a senior at Hammond High School, and for her outstanding bowling skills while competing in and earning the championship title in the U.S. National High School Bowling Championship held in June 2022. So she is the national bowling champion. Jaden earned this championship title by playing her best game of the tournament in the championship match to claim the girls' singles title. She competed in the final match of the tournament facing Kara Bissell for the title. Doesn't matter what her name is, huh? For the title, winning the match 249 to 222. A heck of a game there. That's a match. That was unbelievable. Jaden claimed the first national championship for Louisiana since the event began in 2016. She will attend Southern University and compete on their bowling team. So she has a scholarship to bowl at Southern University. So we, the Tangipahoa Parish Council President Government, does hereby recognize Ms. Jaden Hawk for her remarkable accomplishments thus far in her young life and promising career. Jaden, we're so proud of you, and we look forward to following you throughout your future and wish you all the best. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Good job, Jaden.
Robbie. One thing that One thing President Miller didn't mention is she is Mr. Buddy Ridgeville's granddaughter.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, you can't hold that.
We have
She,
Mr. Buddy.
And it's not true, I didn't teach her anything.
come, Mr. Buddy, come out here and take a picture. Come on. I forgot about that part.
Yeah. Drink beer.
Look, can y'all just hold it, Robbie? Robbie, 1 second. Hold it, darling.
Jaden.
Look, we have some Southernites here also who came up to support this young lady. So if y'all don't mind, I'd like for the Southernites to come up and take a picture with her as well.
Papa went and sat back down.
Sit back down.
I went to Burger Hut. Burger Hut.
Go, Jax.
Congratulations.
Good job.
You're gonna really have a good education. All right, thank you, Mr. President.
All right. It's a really good event to start the meeting off with. So
Yes,
the
indeed.
next item we have is approval of bids for East Minnesota Park Road in Hammond and pedestrian improvements. This is an RPC project that we started probably close to 5 years ago. Sidewalk project along Minnesota Park. Courts Construction Services out of Covington was the low bidder, $645,249. The majority of those dollars will be coming from the RPC.
Also move, this is well needed. There's always folks walking down that road. It's amazing the difference in the bids. One bid was $854,000.
They want to make sure if they got it, they could get it done.
Wow. It's also move.
Have a motion by Mr. VL, second by Mr. Mayhew. Roll call, please.
Mr. Ingraffia.
Yes.
Mr. Joseph.
Yes.
Mr. Bruno. Mr. Richtel.
Yes.
Mr. Mayhew.
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
Yes.
Mr. Vial.
Yes.
Ms. Hyde.
Yes.
Ms. Coates.
Yes.
Mr. Forrest.
Yes.
Thank you. Next item is approval of substantial completion for the HDPE geomembrane installation for the alternative synthetic final cover at the landfill cell 12B. It's accepting it that it's all finished and done.
Madam Chairman.
Have a motion by Mr. Wells, second by Ms. Coates. Roll call, please.
Mr. Joseph.
Yes.
Mr. Bruno.
Yes.
Mr. Richtel.
Yes.
Mr. Mayhew.
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
Yes.
Mr. Vial.
Yes.
Ms. Hyde.
Yes.
Ms. Coates.
Yes.
Mr. Forrest.
Yes.
Mr. Ingraffia.
Yes.
Thank you. And then approval of change order number 1 for overlay program phase 22. This is a change in roads. For the most part, there's a little bit of distance difference, but we took one road off and added another one. Different cost because of the distance. It's $23,751.71.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Mayhew, second by Ms. Coates. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bruno.
Yes.
Mr. Richtel.
Yes.
Mr. Mayhew.
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
Yes.
Mr. Vial.
Yes.
Ms. Hyde.
Yes.
Ms. Coates.
Yes.
Mr. Forrest.
Yes.
Mr. Ingraffia.
Yes.
Mr. Joseph.
Yes.
Thank you. And then if we can note in the minutes that we did the financial report this meeting instead of next meeting, y'all all have a copy of it and emailed to you. If you have any questions, as always, make sure you get with the staff and we'll get you any of the detail that you're looking for. With that being said, I don't have any other notes unless there's questions.
Just to mention, I heard on the radio today that there's a little boy that won the national championship pole vaulting in Hammond,
Yes, yes.
from Hammond High. I didn't catch his name or anything,
Domain. No, I don't, Bo
but
Domain.
you know him, Chris?
Bo Domain, yeah.
But, I know he did win the national championship, so, and I think he signed with Southeastern? No,
He's
LSU.
going to LSU, yeah.
But I think we probably need to go ahead and honor him too if we,
Sure,
okay?
absolutely. If nobody has any questions, I'm finished. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you. All right. First item on regular business is our audit report presentation by James Lambert Riggs and Associate.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'm Paul Riggs, the Audit Director at James Lambert Riggs and Associates. And I want to introduce first two of my partners, Dennis James and Lyle Lambert. They're here tonight. We want to thank the council for allowing us to be your auditors. We want to thank the parish president and the administrative staff, especially their accounting and grants department for their assistance during the audit. Last Thursday morning, Dennis and I met with Mr. Miller, Joe Thomas, Jeff McNeely, Missy Cowart, and Bevan Tabor, and we went in detail on the financial statements. We spent about an hour going over everything. We also met this afternoon with the Finance Committee, went over everything, kind of a brief summary. Tonight, I'm going to do a little bit even briefer summary. You have the financial statements in front of you. The report is about 100 pages long, so a lot of information. After the presentation tonight, if anybody has any questions or would like myself or Dennis or any member of our audit staff to go over anything in detail, please feel free to reach out to us. We will be glad to spend as much time we need going over anything. But I'm just going to go over just a very few highlights this evening. In accordance with the auditing standards that we are supposed to follow, we examine daily processes for cash receipts, cash disbursements, payroll, grants, etc. We tested transactions in those areas. We examined documentation from parish personnel. We analyzed accounts, met with parish personnel, read through the bound financial statements, and all of these procedures led us to the result that the financial statements are good, and as a result, we are issuing a clean opinion on your financial statements. This is the highest result that we can give, and if you were to compare this to a grade in school, this would be an A grade, so very good job. However you want to classify it. As far as the numbers go, the parish is in very good financial health. The general fund operated in a surplus position during 2021. The big thing, as we all know, if you look at the financial statements, compare it with the previous year, there's about $44 million in additional items in the current financial statements due to Hurricane Ida. That roughly $44 million represents debris cleanup and employee labor costs immediately after the storm. And the parish is still working with FEMA. They still have a lot more things to submit. There are some other projects down the road, but this is just some of the big ticket items that happened during 2021. So if you try to literally compare last year's audit to this year, the numbers are going to be very, very different due to Hurricane Ida. In addition to the clean opinion we gave on the numbers, we also have to issue a report on your internal control procedures. These are your daily processes for payroll, cash disbursements, cash receipts, grants, etc. We have examined these major processes, and we do not have any findings or conditions or anything to report on your internal control processes, so very good. We also have to issue a report on whether the parish complied with state law, and we do have one comment regarding compliance with state law regarding budgeting, and this is the only finding in the report. State law requires that your actual figures be within certain thresholds of your budgeted figures, and we had a few funds that were outside of what's allowed by state law. As we talked about during the Finance Committee, however, the budget process started pretty much almost a month after Hurricane Ida. So with everything going on, all of the activity, the fact that we were able to get our budget to be as close as it actually was in most areas to what the actual numbers ended up being is really just a very, very good job given the circumstances. But again, we did have a few funds that missed those thresholds that state law requires you to have, but we don't consider it to be a big issue, but it is something that we have to report in your audit. Finally, we have to issue a report on whether the parish had good procedures in place for spending your federal dollars and whether you complied with federal regulations regarding those dollars. And so we audited, obviously, the FEMA money that came in as a result of Hurricane Ida, and we're pleased to say that everything that we looked at appeared to be in place. It looks like the parish has complied with federal regulations in all respects. I know that the accounting and grant office have been pretty much in constant contact with FEMA ever since the storm hits, and they are still in contact today to make sure that everything that has to be done, that the parish gets this money to then pay these companies to do all the cleanup, that everything is done by the book, and the parish has been doing that since day one. So they have done a wonderful, wonderful job given all the horrible circumstances that we had last fall. So that is a very, very brief summary of the audit. The next thing I want to do is you have a second report at your station. It is the statewide agreed upon procedures engagement. As members of the council, you're also members of the Consolidated Gravity Drainage District and the Tangipahoa Parish Fire District. And so you've probably seen these procedures this year, but just to give a little very brief explanation, these are some special supplemental procedures mandated by the legislative auditor that we have to do in conjunction with your regular audit. These procedures cover 14 major areas such as credit cards, payroll, ethics training, and there are about 70 individual procedures that we have to do in these areas. And we had 4 procedures that we had to meet with management on, that they have some things that they need to correct, but otherwise we did a very good job on these procedures for this year. So to summarize what is, again, a lot of information in front of you, we are issuing a clean audit opinion. The parish had a good year financially. The parish has been and is continuing to work very closely with FEMA regarding post-Ida funding, and we only had a single compliance finding on the budget. So overall, we consider this to be a very good audit, and the parish, the council should be very pleased with the way everything has gone, and you have a great staff from all of your departments, and we have really appreciated working with everybody, and this has been a very good audit to work on. So again, a lot of information. I don't want to take up too much time during the meeting, but if anybody has any questions about the audit, please feel free to reach out to Dennis or myself at another time, and we'll be glad to go over anything you want in a little bit more detail. So at this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Dennis James to come up and briefly go over one more report that we have this evening.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, I want to personally congratulate you on getting an A+ on your audit report this year. I think we can all agree that last year was a trying time for all of us, both personally and in our professional lives. And the fact that you got an A+ on your audit report, I think the taxpayers of this parish should be very grateful for the hard work that this council has done, that the parish president has done and his staff to get the numbers right, to do it right. In a normal year, it takes a lot of effort, but in a Hurricane Ida year, it was extraordinary effort to get it done, and I do want to commend all of y'all on that. During the planning phases of the audit, we were asked to take a look at some of the financial procedures of the coroner's office. My staff developed about 12 procedures that we thought would respond to some of the concerns that were expressed to our office. I want to briefly go over what our findings were, and of course, if y'all have any questions, please feel free to ask me. Our procedures are grouped into really 3 different areas. We looked at payroll procedures. we looked at the budget of the coroner's office, and then we looked at the salary and the compensation that's paid to the coroner for services rendered. Earlier today, we met with the Finance Committee. We went through this report in detail. I'll just hit the highlights. When it comes to the payroll procedures, we looked at 25 individual payroll checks. We reconciled gross pay back to the approved salary schedule in the personnel files. We made sure that every paycheck had a timesheet that was signed by the employee and their immediate supervisor. And if there were any paid leave on that timesheet, we made sure that the documentation was in order to pay that accrued leave. We didn't have any exceptions in our testing except one, and I think this was just a policy decision of the coroner where if an employee requested paid leave, their policy was that the supervisor could approve that request on their weekly timesheet. That policy is a little bit different than what Tangipahoa Parish government requires, which is that the employee first fill out a request for leave, and then that be evaluated by the supervisor and then approved by the supervisor. We think best practices in government require that level of control. We think Tangipahoa Parish government has excellent control procedures in the area of accrued leave and time and attendance, and we think that the coroner's office should follow those procedures as well. But we did see that the supervisor approved the leave. For the coroner's budget, there's a graph on page 5 that you can take a look at real quickly. What it basically says is that the difference between the revenue that the coroner's office brings in and the expenditures, in the year 2017, there was a deficit of about $675,000. That deficit has grown to $787,000, and that deficit is paid out of the general fund of the parish. So that just kind of shows you the trend of what's happening there. When you look at the salary and fees paid to the coroner, there's an agreement between parish government and the coroner that he is to be paid a salary plus $100 for every certificate of emergency, coroner emergency certificate or CEC that's written. There's a graph in here that you'll see where what you'll notice is that we went back to 2017, and for the period of time, 2017, 2018, 2019, the amount of fees that were paid to the coroner was about the same, and then the fees started to increase in 2020, and then they really increased in 2021. So what we did is we looked at, there were 776 CECs that were written and paid to the coroner by Tangipahoa Parish taxpayers in 2021. We selected a random sample of 4 CECs. We went to the coroner's office. We looked in their files, and all of the paperwork that we believe is necessary for a proper CEC was in the file. We didn't have any exception in that testing. We're not able to determine why there was an increase in 2021 early in the year, followed by a decrease later in the year. But for the 40 CECs that we tested, it appeared that everything that was necessary in the file for the coroner to bill the parish for that fee and for him to be paid was in order. So again, procedurally, a couple things we might recommend they do differently, but this particular report didn't have any overall effect on the audit of Tangipahoa Parish government. It is still an A+ audit. Again, we commend the council and the president and his staff for the hard work in making that happen. We believe a clean audit report, an A+ audit report, is a demonstration of good government in action, and I think that's what y'all did last year. So that's all Paul and I had on the audit. We do intend to release the reports sometime tomorrow, unless any of y'all have any questions. You certainly can call our office or stop by in Hammond to visit with us if you have any other questions, but that's the conclusion of our report. Okay.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the report coming from the auditor.
A second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Wells, second by Ms. Coates. Roll call, please.
Mr. Richtel,
Yes.
Mr. Mayhew,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Mr. Vial,
Yes.
Ms. Hyde,
Yes.
Ms. Coates,
Yes.
Mr. Forrest,
Yes.
Mr. Graffia,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Thank you, and God bless you and your family.
Thank you, Mr. Dennis. All right. Adoption of TP Ordinance 2239, an ordinance placing 20 mile per hour speed limit signs on McKay Hill Lane in District 10.
I so move.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Ms. Coates, second by Mr. Wells. Roll call, please.
Mr. Mayhew,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Mr. Vial,
Yes.
Ms. Hyde,
Yes.
Ms. Coates,
Yes.
Mr. Forrest,
Yes.
Mr. Graffia,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Richtel,
Yes.
Adoption of TP Ordinance 2240, an ordinance placing 35 mile an hour speed limit signs on Pleasant Hill Road Extension in District 8.
Also move. Second.
We have a motion by Mr. VL, second by Mr. Forrest. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Mr. Vial,
Yes.
Ms. Hyde,
Yes.
Ms. Coates,
Yes.
Mr. Forrest,
Yes.
Mr. Graffia,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yeah.
Mr. Richtel,
Yes.
Mr. Mayhew,
Yes.
Adoption of TP Ordinance 2241, an ordinance placing 35 mile an hour speed limit signs on DePhillips Road in District 2.
So move. Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Ingraffia, second by Mr. Forrest. Roll call, please.
Mr. Vial,
Yes.
Ms. Hyde,
Yes.
Ms. Coates,
Yes.
Mr. Forrest,
Yes.
Mr. Graffia,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Richtel,
Yes.
Mr. Mayhew,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Adoption of TP Ordinance 2242, an ordinance placing no truck route and no trucks beyond this point signs on West Fontana Road at the gravel pit to East Evans Road in District 4.
So moved, but I need those signs on both ends. Just so we, at the gravel pit and then at East Evans Road also, so they don't come in either way.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Bruno, second by Mr. Ridgel. Roll call, please.
Ms. Hyde,
Yes.
Ms. Coates,
Yes.
Mr. Forrest,
Yes.
Mr. Graffia,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Richtel,
Yes.
Mr. Mayhew,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Mr. Vial,
Yes.
All right, we have several introductions. The first one is introduction of TP Ordinance 2243, an ordinance placing 15 mile an hour speed limit and drive like your kids live here signs on Sunset Acres in District 6.
So moved.
I'll second it.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Mayhew, second by Mr. Wells. Roll call, please.
Ms. Coates,
Yes.
Mr. Forrest,
Yes.
Mr. Graffia,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Richtel,
Yep.
Mr. Mayhew,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Mr. Vial,
Yes.
Ms. Hyde,
Yes. Introduction of TP Ordinance 2244, an ordinance placing 15 mile an hour speed limit and drive like your kids live here signs on Bush Lane in District 6.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Mayhew, second by Ms. Coates. Roll call, please.
Mr. Forrest,
Yes.
Mr. Graffia,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Richtel,
Yes.
Mr. Mayhew,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Mr. Vial,
Yes.
Ms. Hyde,
Yes.
Ms. Coates,
Yes.
Introduction of TP Ordinance 2245, an ordinance amending and enacting Chapter 36, Planning and Development, Article 5, Standards for Subdivision of Property, Section 36, 115, Special Use Residential Commercial Developments, Multifamily, Major Apartments, Condominiums, Townhouses, and Duplex Standards. This is coming as a recommendation from the Development Regulations Committee.
I so move.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Coates, second by Mr. Mayhew. Roll call, please.
Mr. Graffia,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Richtel,
Yes.
Mr. Mayhew,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Mr. Vial, Ms. Hyde,
Yes.
Ms. Coates,
Yes.
Mr. Forrest,
Yes.
Introduction of TP Ordinance 2246, an ordinance amending and enacting Chapter 36, Planning and Development, Article 5, Standards for Development of Property, Section 36, 118, Other Improvement Standards for Commercial Property Developments. This is also coming as a recommendation from the Development Regulations Committee.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. VL, second by Mr. Ingraffia. Roll call, please.
Mr. Joseph,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Richtel.
Yes.
Mr. Mayu,
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
Yes.
Mr. Vial,
Yes.
Ms. Hyde,
Yes.
Ms. Coates,
Yes.
Mr. Forrest,
Yes.
Mr. Ingraffia.
Yes.
Introduction of TP Ordinance 2247, an ordinance amending and enacting Chapter 36, Planning and Development, Article 6, Additional Agencies Requirement, Section 36-143, General Infrastructure Reviews and Approvals. This is concerning sewerage. After consulting with Jason Hood, this is also coming as a recommendation from our Development Regulations Committee.
So move.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. VL, second by Ms. Coates. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Richtel.
Yes.
Mr. Mayu,
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
Yes.
Mr. Vial,
Yes.
Ms. Hyde,
Yes.
Ms. Coates,
Yes.
Mr. Forrest,
Yes.
Mr. Ingraffia,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph.
Yes.
Introduction of TP Ordinance 2248, an ordinance amending and enacting Chapter 42, Streets, Roads, Sidewalks, and Drainage, Article 1, in general, Section 42-21, Road Specifications, B, Subbase, and C, Base. This is coming on a recommendation from our parish engineer.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Mayu, second by Mr. Ingraffia. Roll call, please.
Mr. Richtel,
Yes.
Mr. Mayu,
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
Yes.
Mr. Vial,
Yes.
Ms. Hyde,
Yes.
Ms. Coates,
Yes.
Mr. Forrest,
Yes.
Mr. Ingraffia,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph.
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Introduction of TP Ordinance 2249, an ordinance amending and enacting Appendix C, Figures 2 through 5. This is also coming from a recommendation from our parish engineer.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. VL, second by Mr. Ingraffia. Roll call, please.
Mr. Mayu,
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
Yes.
Mr. Vial,
Yes.
Ms. Hyde,
Yes.
Ms. Coates,
Yes.
Mr. Forrest,
Yes.
Mr. Ingraffia,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Richtel.
Yes.
Introduction of TP Ordinance 2250, an ordinance to grant a variance to Section 36-112, Special Classification Property Development Standards for Mark and Aaron Smith, Assessment Number 3141101 in District 2. This is coming from as a recommendation from the Planning Commission based on the health, safety, and welfare of the resident.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Ingraffia, second by Mr. Bruno. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wells.
Yes.
Mr. Vial. Ms. Hyde,
Yes.
Ms. Coates,
Yes.
Mr. Forrest,
Yes.
Mr. Ingraffia,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Richtel.
Yes.
Mr. Mayu,
Yes.
Introduction of TP Ordinance 2251, an ordinance amending and enacting Chapter 36 nuisances to add Chapter 32 nuisance to add Article 5 minimum housing standards. This is a recommendation from the Development Regulations Committee also.
So move.
Second.
All right, have a motion by Mr. VL, second by Mr. Mayu. Roll call, please.
Mr. Vial,
Yes.
Ms. Hyde,
Yes.
Ms. Coates,
Yes.
Mr. Forrest,
Yes.
Mr. Ingraffia,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Richtel,
Yes.
Mr. Mayu,
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
Yes.
As the administration, y'all had a chance to look at these, y'all comfortable with them as far as,
12 through 18. I think so with the introduction, it was time.
I mean, we
Robbie, your mic's not
Right
on.
now.
we gonna be in a position that we'll be able to enforce that?
Our staff was in the meeting, so we're gonna have to make sure that they still agree, but we'll get through it.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, Mr.
Is this the same document, Jill, that you sent out for us to make recommendations?
Yes, it is.
Were
And
you
then-
able to put the one I recommended in there?
I
That-
mentioned it to them, yes, sir. But I'm not sure they did it.
They recommended, Bridget, sprinklers, but I said that we should also include, carbon monoxide detectors as well.
Okay.
And rental property?
In the homes, yeah.
We had a final draft that was sent out after our last regulations meeting, but I'll check on that.
That's minor enough. I think you could amend it, the introduction too.
Okay.
Okay,
Don't y'all think that should be in there?
yeah.
Okay.
When we say, I think we need to talk about the sprinkler system a little bit. Are you talking about all rentals should have sprinklers? Is that what I heard?
No, he's saying CO2.
I'm sorry?
A CO2.
Oh, I thought
Yes,
I heard.
Carbon
sprinkler.
monoxide,
Oh, I thought I heard
detectors.
sprinkler for some
No.
reason, okay. CO, yeah.
A lot of people dying from that, you all.
Mr. President.
So are we gonna amend it now? We could, right?
Could
Yeah,
now.
if you want it, Mr. Joseph.
Yeah, that's a
Are we sure
All
it's
right,
not
I'll,
How-
No, this is the detect gas.
It's like a
If
smoke
you got a
detector,
leak
but
or
it's-
something.
Yeah.
Or during hurricane
Carbon
season, people
monoxide.
hook up generators and the fume come into the house. More of them die from carbon monoxide than they do from anything else.
I mean, we can amend tonight.
Yeah.
You're introducing it. If you want to amend it tonight, you can just add requirement for carbon
we
monoxide.
did, we had a motion.
We
on
did.
that.
So let's do
All right,
it.
do you want to make a,
I did.
And I said,
all right, have a motion by Mr. Joseph, second by Mr. Wells to amend the ordinance to add CO2 detectors. All right, roll call.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Richtel?
Yes.
Mr. Mayhew?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Vial?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Forrest?
Yes.
Mr. Ingraffia?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mr. President, can we announce the date of the public hearing, date and time of the public hearing for these ordinances? We ought to make a practice of doing that at introduction.
Okay.
Do we know what that is?
It's at our next meeting.
August 22nd.
August 22nd.
Okay, so then you ought to just make
At
it.
5:30.
Yeah.
Mhm. Did we vote on the original
Okay.
motion?
You need to vote now on the, it was a, you
Wait,
voted
we
on the
need to vote
amendment.
on the introduction of the original, right?
Right.
right.
Yeah, so we need to do another roll call.
Okay. Mr. Mayhew?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Vial?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Forrest? Mr. Ingraffia?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno? Mr. Richtel?
Yes.
Okay. Administration asked us to add an item, so I'm going to ask that someone make a motion that we amend the agenda to add introduction of TP Ordinance 2252, an ordinance to provide an exemption of parish government 1 cent sales tax during the state of Louisiana sales tax holiday, September 2nd through 4th, 2022.
Madam Chairman, I have an item that needs to be added too. You want me to add it at this time, or you want me to come back?
Let's do them separate.
Okay, good.
I'll make that motion. I'll second to amend.
All right, so I have a motion by Mr. Mayhew, second by Mr. VL, that we amend the agenda to add this item. Roll call?
We are amending it and adding it because of the time frame, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Vial?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Forrest?
Yes.
Mr. Ingraffia?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Richtel?
Yes.
Mr. Mayhew?
Yes.
Okay. Introduction of TP Ordinance 2252, an ordinance to provide an exemption of parish government 1 cent sales tax during the state of Louisiana sales tax holiday, September 2nd through 4th, 2022.
And what does that cover?
I'm sorry,
Second amendment. Second amendment items.
Shells, guns,
Yes, sir.
Any
But
kind of hunting
the-
supply?
We duplicate or replicate the state of Louisiana's.
Also move.
And it's only for our 1%. We're not speaking for the school board nor the municipality. It's only
Just
the
our
parish
1 penny.
1%.
Mr. Mayhew?
It did include, like Bruno was mentioning, ammunition, like hunting, hunt supplies, and
It meant the state, and I know.
Mr. Vial?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Forrest?
Yes.
Mr. Ingraffia?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Richtel?
Yes.
Mr. Mayhew?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Wells, you, had something to add?
Madam Chairman, we needed a liquor permit for Warford
Well,
grocery.
let's wait till we get to beer, wine, and liquor, if you don't mind. Is that okay?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we
Let's
could
go
do
ahead and
that.
do the resolutions, and when we
I'm
get
easy to get along with, Madam.
All right. Adoption of resolutions, adoption of TP Resolution R 2217, a resolution to the Tangipahoa Parish Council / President Government for support of state capital outlay for Phase 2 North Hoover Road.
Also move.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Vial, second by Ms. Coates. Roll call, please.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Forrest?
Yes.
Mr. Graffia?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno? Mr. Richtel?
Yes.
Mr. Mayu? Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Vial?
Yes.
Adoption of TP Resolution R 2218, a resolution of the Tangipahoa Parish Council / President Government for support of state capital outlay for the Public Works Emergency Distribution Center project.
Also move.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Vial, second by Mr. Forrest. Roll call, please.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Forrest?
Yes.
Mr. Graffia?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Richtel?
Yes.
Mr. Mayu?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Vial?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes. Adoption of TP Resolution R 2219, a resolution of the Tangipahoa Parish Council / President Government authorizing the parish attorney to move forward with legal action concerning an unauthorized business operating at 42695 Robinwood Drive in Hammond, Louisiana, in District 6.
On that, this is a alleged sober living house that is opened up in my district, unauthorized, no licensing. They haven't come into the council to get approval. They've broken almost every rule we have in the ordinance. We've sent them letters of cease and desist, and it's been, for all practical purposes, ignored. And so I'm asking the council to support, to take legal action, do what we have to do to close them up until they come in front of this council and get in compliance with the ordinance that we have in place. And the understanding, I think there's maybe another one opened up in another district that I'm sure we're gonna be having to.
Yeah, the paperwork was sent to Brad, Chris, and after the last meeting.
Right.
And I'd like to include it in this one. It's the same situation. They bought a house. The people that own it are in St. Tammany Parish, and they have put some prisoners with sex offender records, and there's no supervision. None of the rules were followed. No occupational license, anything. So all of the address and everything was forwarded to Brad. Is that right? That was this is the one on Antioch Road that we talked about at the last meeting.
Yeah, all that stuff was sent.
Yeah. So I'd like to include it with this one,
Okay.
that both of them be
Are
brought
they
before the
both in his
council.
district? I thought
No,
we had
one's in
Joe's.
mine, one's in
I
his.
know mine, the assistant deceased letter was sent, and it's
Right,
been. for all
Joe was
pra-
gonna send us those letters. I don't know if we've gotten those unless he sent them directly to Brad. I haven't seen them.
Yeah, Brad has sent them direct
Okay.
to them. They have received them.
Got it.
They've been ignored at this
Right.
point.
We'll get
So
on
are
it.
you asking that we amend this
I
resolution?
would like to amend it and add on to his so that both of them, we can go ahead and get something done right away with both of them.
All right, let's have a motion we have a motion by Mr. Bruno that we amend this resolution to add, do you have the address? or-
Antioch Road.
It's Antioch Road. Let me see if I
Okay.
still have it on my phone. The address is 50052 Antioch Road.
And that's Tickfall, correct?
That is
The mailing
Tick-
address?
That's Tickfall, and I've got some other information if he needs it, but all of this was sent to Brad.
Okay, so I have a motion by Mr. Bruno to amend this resolution to add 50052 Antioch Road, Tickfall, for our parish attorney to also move forward with legal action. If I can, all right, have a second by Mr. Mayu. Roll call, please.
Mr. Forrest?
Yes.
Mr. Graffia?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Richtel?
Yes.
Mr. Mayu?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Vial?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Okay, and then I have a motion by Mr. Mayu to adopt a resolution, and I need a second on that.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Mayu, second by Mr. Bruno. Roll call, please.
Mr. Ingraffia.
Yes.
Mr. Joseph.
Yes.
Mr. Bruno.
Yes.
Mr. Richtel.
Yes.
Mr. Mayu.
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
Yes.
Mr. Vial.
Yes.
Ms. Hyde.
Yes.
Ms. Coates.
Yes.
Mr. Forrest.
Yes.
All right. Do we have the paperwork on this gravity? Okay. so we're-
Motion to table 22, new appointment of Gravity Drainage District.
I'll second.
All right, have a motion to table the appointment to the Gravity Drainage District Number 5, second by Mr. Wells. Roll call, please.
Mr. Joseph.
Yes.
Mr. Bruno. Mr. Richtel.
Yes.
Mr. Mayu.
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
Yes.
Mr. Vial. Ms. Hyde.
Yes.
Ms. Coates.
Yes.
Mr. Forrest.
Yes.
Mr. Ingraffia.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Wells, I will entertain your motion at this time.
Madam Chairman, we had a beer, wine, and liquor permit that wasn't included on the agenda, no fault of the secretary. It's for Warford Grocery and Deli. It's located at 472-184 North Cherry Street in Hammond, which is in my district.
I'll second.
They're asking for Class B beer and Class A and B liquor. Thank you.
All right, so I have a motion by Mr. Wells, second by Mr. VL to amend the agenda to add this item. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bruno.
Yeah.
Mr. Richtel.
Yes.
Mr. Mayu.
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
Yes.
Mr. Vial.
Yes.
Ms. Hyde.
Yes.
Ms. Coates. Mr. Forrest.
Yes.
Mr. Ingraffia.
Yes.
Mr. Joseph.
Yes.
I move to approve, Madam Chairman.
All right, I have a motion to approve the beer, wine, and liquor, second by Mr. Ridgel. Roll call, please.
Mr. Mayu.
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
Yes.
Mr. Vial.
Yes.
Ms. Hyde.
Yes.
Ms. Coates.
Yes.
Mr. Forrest.
Yes.
Mr. Ingraffia.
Yes.
Mr. Joseph.
Yes.
Mr. Bruno.
Yeah.
Mr. Richtel.
Yes.
Legal matters,
Done tonight.
councilman's privileges.
I want to congratulate our legal counsel. He's a grandpa.
Again,
Came
Beautiful-
that same night.
Beautiful baby girl.
Yeah, thank you.
I have one, Bridget.
yes, sir.
I'd like to read a memo I just got from the Tangipahoa Parish School System. It's from Assistant Superintendent Ron Jenko, entitled, "Let's Stuff the Bus, Tangi." The Meet Walmart will host a Stuff the Bus event this Saturday, August 13, 2022, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. As you shop in the store, please consider picking up a few school supply items, pay for items, and then stuff the bus in the parking lot with the supplies as you exit the store. Donated school supplies will be used for students in the Tangipahoa Parish School System. Thank you in advance for your assistance in this worthy cause. Thank you.
That was the A-Meet Walmart.
Yes. Stuff the bus.
Anyone else? Mr. Buddy?
I just want to thank you and Louis for the efforts you guys put in to get everything together for my granddaughter's recognition. I know it took a lot, and you two guys was the kind
And Jill.
of ran it. And Jill.
Yeah.
Maybe Robbie had something to do with it. I don't know. He took all the credit. But thank you guys.
You're more than welcome.
Anyone else? All right, Mr. Wells, I'll entertain your motion.
All right, Madam Chairman, before I make that motion, one thing the citizens of this parish asked us to do is be accountable for the tax money that they pay. I would like to congratulate our parish president and his administration and the council for receiving an A+ on art. So I move that we adjourn.
Yeah, good job.